Real quick before I begin, I would like to throw in a trigger warning, as I will be discussing heavy topics such as sexual assault, unfortunately. So if that's something that's a little bit triggering to you or something that you're just not comfortable listening to, don't blame you. Don't watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, I usually try to avoid talking about anything too serious on my channel. I like to keep things fun and light, but I wanted to shed some light on this specifically because I was a die-hard Nickelodeon kid. Most of my favorite shows I grew up watching were on Nickelodeon, and I have a catalog of SpongeBob quotes rotating through my head rent-free. There is a SpongeBob quote for everything. However, all jokes aside, this truly breaks my heart to see what has been coming to light recently. I'm sure you've either heard of or watched the new docu-series Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. What a title. A disturbing glance behind the scenes of our favorite Nickelodeon TV shows such as All That, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, iCarly, Victorious, and many more. This series sheds light on unfair treatment, gender discrimination, sexual harassment, and physical and emotional abuse in the workplace, including children. Yeah, the Nickelodeon executives, I guess, allowed pedophiles on set? Who the fuck let that slide? Multiple times. The docuseries also shows some of the now adult cast members that were interviewed who opened up about feeling overlooked for being black, so allegedly there could have been some racial discrimination as well. One story that the docuseries heavily revolves around was Drake Bell's experience with dialect coach Brian Peck, also known as a pedophile, who sexually abused him multiple times, and this was Drake's first time talking about it publicly. I just finished watching it today and it was a very emotional docuseries. I literally had to pause it multiple times and walk away to clear my head because some of the information was just so disturbing. It made me physically, mentally, and emotionally uncomfortable, and I wasn't even there. Did I cry? Yep. Sure did. Now, I'm not here to talk about the docuseries itself because I really don't have much commentary to add to it, and to be honest, it's just extremely uncomfortable to talk about. What I do want to talk about, though, is Dan Schneider's prompt and dismissive response to the docuseries. It was out for like, what, 1-2 days, and this man came out with an interview immediately to save face. Ain't no saving that face, that's for fucking sure. The man is beat. So this weird interview came out from Tebow, of all people, the bagel on a stick guy from iCarly.
You guys want some bagels?
We don't want any bagels.
I sell you the whole stick. $5.
He was one of Dan Schneider's employees, and he's the one we're having interview this man, someone with a bias already. Okay, and before we watch the interview, I just want to address the fact that this man aged like whole milk that was left in the Arizona desert heat. Ew. Not only does he dress like he does not own a mirror in his house, but the fact that he let that pubic hair beard grow into his turkey neck. Ugh. And I must say, you'd think someone who is quick to fat shame women would lose a little bit of weight themselves, but nope. And look, I'm not one to fat shame. I'm not the one who's fat phobic. I appreciate all body sizes. However, if you're a pedophile and an abuser, yeah, I'm gonna fucking make fun of the way you look. It's fair game. This man called a child the fat one and accused a normal sized child for being fat as if it's a negative thing to be. Hey, did you look in the mirror? That's like me saying that everyone with blue eyes is an ugly piece of shit, but here I am. Except for me though, I'm okay. Like what? That doesn't make sense. Okay, so this is on Dan Warp's YouTube channel, which I believe is his YouTube channel. He uploaded this onto his own YouTube channel and the comments are turned off. Of course they are. And you can't see the dislike to like ratio, but I'm assuming the dislike is a lot more. I'll add one to it.
I reached out to Dan to see if it was something that he'd be willing to discuss.
I'm curious if he actually reached out to Dan or if Dan reached out to him and was like, hey, you want to say that you reached out to me so I can put this on my YouTube channel? Like the fact that it's uploaded to his own YouTube channel and not Tebow's or some news outlet, like it's his own YouTube channel. Like he could have scripted this whole thing out and paid Tebow for all we know.
Dan, how are you? I'm okay.
And the way I did not expect him to be sitting on the other side of him, I thought this was like a parody or like a skit, because I first saw this on TikTok, and so when he was on the other side, we were all just like, oh, he's okay.
I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about
what we saw over the last 2 nights.
Yeah, this already seems very disingenuous. I don't buy it. Sorry. We're not even a minute in. I'm already pissed off. So throughout this interview, Tebow addresses a lot of the things that were brought up throughout the docu-series. He addresses some of the things, not all of them. The first one being Dan Schneider always receiving massages. It was always a woman giving him a massage. It could be a writer. It could be someone who works in wardrobe. Like, what if your boss asked you to give them a massage while you're at work? I would quit on the spot. I'd be like, actually, no. Also, why not just hire a massage therapist to be on set if you're that tense? If you need a goddamn massage every 10 minutes while you're working, hire one. You got the money.
It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today.
I don't believe you. I think you. Okay. I think he is mad that he got caught.
I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.
You're doing this via YouTube video that you uploaded. You didn't reach out to them personally and be like, I am so sorry that, you felt this way. You're strictly doing this to save face.
Dan, talk to me about the writer's room.
So what I think this is referencing, there was a woman who was a writer for the show, and she was forced to keep the details at a minimum. He basically made this woman humiliate herself and sexualize herself as him and all of the male writers in the room laughed at her. Hey, what the fuck is that, Dan? Also, I am going to be cussing a little bit more in this video because I'm pissed off, as I mentioned.
No writer should ever feel uncomfortable in any writer's room, ever. A lot of times there are inappropriate jokes made and inappropriate topics come up.
There's a difference between having like an inappropriate, like dirty joke that's not offensive to just one person in the room. Like, you can have a funny, dirty joke and it be like something silly, But then there's making someone humiliate themselves in front of a room full of other men. That's psychopath behavior. What are you doing?
That was wrong, and that was because I was an inexperienced producer. I was immature. Wouldn't happen today, but I'm just really sorry it happened.
Don't apologize to Tebow. Apologize to them. What the hell? He's not even looking at the camera. He's looking at Tebow. And the apology, again, does not feel sincere. It feels very much like, oh, I got caught. Sorry. Won't happen again.
Hate that anybody worked for me and didn't have a good time. You know me. You've been on my sets.
Keep in mind, Tebow was a full-grown adult when he was on iCarly. So that's a completely different experience than being a child and working with him. And on top of that, he's black. It seems to me that Dan just kind of overlooked all of the black people on set, allegedly, from the docuseries, their words, not mine. But it's like, his experience, Tebow's experience, is a lot different than Amanda Bynes' experience.
Sure, I would snap at people sometimes. I would be snarky when I could have given them a nicer answer. There were so many times I wanted to pick up a phone and call some of those people and say, I'm so sorry and let's talk about it.
Well, why didn't you? You don't even need to call. You can just send an email or a text or something, because I'm sure they don't want to talk to you.
I wish you'd had a better time, and I wish I could have shown you a better experience.
To be so clueless and unaware of your behavior at the time and not being able to read body language and realize what you're doing is mean, you should have apologized before everyone had to call you out. You had all these years, and now you're like, oh, I guess I should say something. Pathetic. Tebow then gets into, and I keep calling him Tebow, that's not his real name, whatever. Tebow then addresses the fact that a lot of these jokes that were written on children's television, looking back, some of them are just a little weird. The fact that grown adult men wrote some of these jokes and these scenes that are very obviously sexual, especially sexualizing younger girls. Like, these are just innocent kids who just wanted to live their dream of being on TV.
Every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience.
So you admit it. You wrote inappropriate jokes for kid audiences. And I'll have to admit, when I was a kid, I didn't really see a lot of this stuff as sexual because I'm a fucking kid. And I don't know what sex even is. It's just kind of gross that you're taking advantage of the blind spot that children have, because they really have no idea what they're doing, and they can't say no because they don't know what's even going on.
Let's cut those jokes out of the show, just like I would have done 20 years ago or 25 years ago.
And Tebow's overreaction of, just kind of makes Dan look like he's doing something good, like he's doing us a favor. Like, it's kind of too late, buddy. This shit has been on the air. Some of this stuff has been on the air for like 20 years, 10 plus years. So cutting them out really isn't going to do much at this point because everyone's already seen it. But yeah, try to make yourself look like you're doing us a favor. He goes on to talk about the power dynamic that Dan had. He was in charge of every show.
Yeah, I'm the executive producer and I'm the head writer.
You actually wrote the words you're saying together right now?
Yes, I actually wrote this whole conversation that we're having right now.
He said that himself on the Amanda Show in the hot tub with Amanda Bynes, by the way, who was like a kid at the time, weirdo. But now he's claiming that he actually didn't have that control. Let's take a look.
The notion that I had the power to just produce whatever I wanted and have it air is completely false.
Okay.
There were many, many levels of scrutiny. We had executives in LA. We had executives in New York. And we're also shooting it in front of all sorts of adults and caregivers and the set teacher. And if anybody had said anything, hey, we don't like that, that's not appropriate, then it would have been cut out.
Multiple times people on the docu-series say that they did not feel comfortable to speak up because they were scared of Dan Schneider. If you're fostering a work environment where people are afraid to speak their mind or else they'll get punished or get fired or whatever it is, why would someone want to speak up if they want to keep their job?
I'm going to push back a little bit because people were afraid to confront you about things. So say, just humor me, say that was the case. What would have been the ultimate way to...
Okay, if they insisted, you've got to make a change here, you got to cut that. I had to do it. I had no choice.
So he just addresses that by saying, well, if someone would have just said something, I would have had to have cut it. No, you would have cut them.
Seeing some of those on-air dares, what do you think of that?
And some of these dares were really weird. One where a kid had to literally cover his body in peanut butter and get licked by dogs. How do you not think that's weird as an adult?
I think that some of the on-air dares went too far. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to any kid who ever had to do a dare or anything that they didn't want to do or weren't comfortable doing. And if I had known at the time, I would have changed it on the spot.
He just keeps saying, if I would have known, if only someone would have said something. Again, it goes back to that power dynamic where the children were afraid to speak up about what they didn't like because they were scared they were going to get cut from the show. There's no way for him to make this look good. Like, he doesn't look like a good person.
We saw these two women who were writers for you sharing one salary. How does that happen?
Sometimes you'll go to two writers and say, hey, if you two new writers for your first job are willing to share a salary, you can both have the job. Have the opportunity to say, yes, that sounds good, or no, no thank you.
He says that they have the option to say yes or no, but in the docu-series, that wasn't an option. It wasn't asked as a question. It was, you have to share a salary with this person. Why would you even have people share a salary? Just give them their own separate salaries. It just sounds weird to say you're sharing a salary with someone. Like, does it just go to one bank account and the other one has to just write a check to the other one? Like, how does that even work, first of all? Second of all, writers have been severely underpaid for years, as we know. And then on top of that, he strictly said, allegedly, that women aren't funny. So it's just really ironic that he says that women aren't funny, but then goes on to say that the two women writers have to share one salary and then all the men get their own salaries. I am not the best mathematician, but that is not adding up. Yeah.
They also highlighted two black actors who said that they felt overlooked. I saw you be honored for diversity in your work.
These cards in his hand, I know damn well Dan Schneider fucking wrote that shit. Like, there's no way. And you know, it kind of breaks my heart because Tebow was like a cool guy. He was a cool character. And now I'm just kind of like, okay, sell out.
Diversity has always been very important to me in my shows. And then the first movie I ever made for Nickelodeon, which starred Kenan and Kel.
And you know what breaks my heart even more is that Good Burger has always been in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I love Good Burger. And to just know that the mind behind Good Burger, and Dan Schneider's even in Good Burger, which makes it even fucking worse because now I don't know if I can ever rewatch it and enjoy it. This is just not fair to any party involved.
And every show I did after that had a lead black actor in it.
So he completely overlooks the fact that the black people on the set felt overlooked. And he just goes on to say, like, oh, I'm proud to have incorporated diversity into my shows and movies, and I'm proud of them. You tiptoed around the actual allegation, but okay.
Amanda was between the ages of 16 and 17, and she wanted to get emancipated from her parents. We supported her. She tried to get emancipated, and it ended up not working out, and she didn't.
I wish he would have asked, what do you think about how Amanda Bynes is turning out now? They're so overly focused on these children when they're children, but then when they grow up to be adults, it's just like, okay, I did the damage, and now this person is a grown adult and has to figure out life traumatized. I remember exactly where I was when Amanda Bynes had her first like public breakdown. It was just sad to see, you know, not saying that she's on a downfall or anything, it's just like she's on a completely different path than I thought she would be when I was like younger. And I know we as public people are not entitled to her trauma, her story. She doesn't owe us anything. I just think if people like her are brave enough to speak up about people like Dan Schneider, or, you know, how Drake Bell spoke up about Brian Peck, the more people who speak out against this stuff, although it's scary and I'm sure they feel scared that they're gonna get silenced or ostracized, like the more this stuff comes to light, the less it's likely to happen, because people will be scared that people will come forward and talk about it, which is unfortunate that that has to be the motivator to not do something bad. But
there was also an incident where she had ran away from home.
I called someone who I knew was fairly nearby. That person was able to go and pick her up. Then I knew she was safe. She ended up being taken to the police.
I think it's only positive that you are there for people when they need you.
Again, this video was just made for Dan to look like a good person. The way he's hyping him up is just Now he is addressing Brian Peck, who is the dialect coach that sexually assaulted Drake Bell multiple times.
Brian Peck was not hired by you.
No, I did not hire Brian Peck.
Okay, so Dan Schneider didn't hire Brian Peck. They worked closely together. Brian Peck was on one of the shows as Pickle Boy. Weird. I just don't believe that he had no idea.
And when Drake and I talked and he told me what had happened, I was more devastated by that than anything that ever happened to me in my career. Drake's mom, a lovely woman, she came to me at the time and she said, "Dan, I'm not good with words like you are. And would you help me with my speech for the judge?"
He had this whole interview to pretend to cry, and he chose this moment. I feel like it's very random to start crying about Drake's mom asking you to help her for a speech. You'd think if you're gonna fake cry to probably do it when you found out that Drake got sexually assaulted by someone that works for you, or cry at the fact that you made all of these people, women, children, minorities alike, uncomfortable and traumatized.
I said, of course. And I did. And he ended up going to prison and serving his time. Yeah, that was probably the darkest part of my career.
The fact that it was like 4 seconds of like almost crying and then just gets back into it like, you know, and I was really sad about it. But then I was just fine. Give me a fucking break, dude.
After he got out of prison and was, to my knowledge, a registered sex offender, he was hired on a Disney Channel show.
Not him trying to flip it on Disney and be like, well, yeah, Nick was bad, but did you see Disney? Like, shut the fuck up. Both of y'all were fucked up. Y'all were both weird. So then, after he pretends to shed a tear, Tebow asks him this.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed? Anything that if you could go back and navigate the journey differently, what would that look like?
One, I would suggest that we have a licensed therapist there for the specific reason of making sure that those kids really wanted to do this job, that they really wanted to be on television.
This is a load of barnacles. Told you. This is a load of barnacles, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, I don't disagree that there should be therapists on site to help cope with going from being an anonymous person to being a famous person, especially as a kid. But these kids were traumatized from your work environment. They weren't traumatized from just like the fame itself. In fact, they seemed like that was the least of their worries. They were worried about Dan Schneider being mad at them. They were worried about Dan Schneider cutting them off the show. They were afraid of being humiliated. I don't remember them talking about the fame. They needed the therapy to cope with the trauma that was going down on the set and the people that were working on the set and the adults present. You'd think we could live in a world where this isn't even an issue.
I could be cocky and definitely overambitious, and sometimes just straight up rude and obnoxious, and I am so sorry that I ever was.
I will say the one thing I appreciate is that he does acknowledge that he was rude and obnoxious and treated people like shit. However, I don't believe that he's sorry. I believe he's sorry he got caught. Rihanna said it best. You know you only sorry you got caught. Yeah, because you put on quite a show. Ooh-oh.
Dan, I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for stopping by, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was such a production. This was very staged, obviously. He attempts to take accountability, but it's only because there's a documentary out about him. If this documentary didn't exist, this interview would not exist. I feel like there's a lot that we don't know, and this documentary just kind of scratched the surface a little bit. Because after watching it, I felt like there were still a lot of unanswered questions. There's just like a lot of shady stuff that I feel like went down that was not talked about, and I feel like he's scared that it might come out. So I guess we'll see. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about this apology? What did you think about the docu-series? If you watched it, if there's anything that I missed, feel free to fill in the blanks. I just hope that everyone who was harmed, abused emotionally, physically, mentally, finds peace at this point, and I hope the sets for television shows are safer in the future, because this is just ridiculous. My name is Maddie. You can call me Maddie the Baddie. You can call me your new favorite YouTuber. And this was a serious video. My next one will be fun, hopefully, and I will see you there. All right, bye.